So I'm going to read our bios for our guests tonight. Let's see, to your left, my left, your left, right? You're right. Okay, we have Adelma Stanford Brown, a senior digital communication manager who is an active member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Inc., where she currently serves as the president of Alpha Alpha Phi, is it Pi? Pi Omega chapter in South Gwinnett, Georgia. Her community involvement extends to various organizations, reflecting her commitment to making a positive impact. Adelma's passion for literature is evident in her long-standing membership with A Mo Better View Book Club, spanning over 15 years. As the national best-selling author of more than 53 books, ReShonda Tate has the credentials and the passion to bring stories to life. ReShonda writes both adult and teen fiction as well as nonfiction. Her sophomore novel, Let the Church Say Amen, was made into a film directed by actress Regina King. A highly sought-after motivational speaker and award-winning poet, ReShonda is the recipient of the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Literature for her book, Say Amen Again, and was also nominated for her books Mama's Boy and The Secret She Kept. Considered one of the top African-American authors in the country, her books remain a staple on bestsellers lists and have been featured in USA Today, The Washington Post, Jet Magazine, People, Essence, and Ebony magazines. Help me welcome and give a round of applause to both of our guests tonight. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
ReShonda, how are you?
I am doing great. This traffic though gives me road rage.
Welcome to our world. This is all day, every day for us. So first, we'd like to thank you for spending this time with us. I want to personally thank you for writing this book. It's beautifully written, and we just loved it so much. I've had some mixed emotion and feelings, but I absolutely am kind of obsessed with Hattie McDaniel right now. I can't get enough of her, and so I cannot wait to get into our discussion. So my first question is, why Hattie? Why this book? Why?
So, like a lot of people, the first time I saw Hattie McDaniel was in Gone with the Wind. My grandmother loved the movie, and I didn't. I just was disgusted by it, honestly. I remember watching it with her, and I was a little girl, around 12 years old, and she said, "Well, why don't you like it?" And I said, "Well, because she's this maid, and she's acting so over the top." And my grandmother said, "But she's playing a maid, and I am a maid. So why are you looking at her with disdain? Because I'd much rather trade spots with her." And then she said, plus it's 1939 when she filmed this. What did you expect her to play, Scarlett O'Hara? And it was at that point that I started looking at her differently. And over the years, she has just been someone that has remained in my heart. But I had this 21st century lens on as I looked at her. And I took that lens off, and I was able to see her for the legend that she was.
That's wonderful. And that was my struggle reading it. I had 21st century thoughts, and I was getting frustrated throughout it, but I had to keep trying to go back, so that was challenging. Will you share a little bit about your research in writing this, and tell us a little bit about that voice where she met you in the research lab? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I had to get off the internet. I started researching. First of all, I spent about 3 years putting this book together. And a lot of it, I started out on the internet, and I quickly discovered that a lot of the information on the internet was wrong. And so there was, I'm going and I'm trying to confirm information that I'm finding on the internet, only to find out that it's erroneous information. For example, if you go to Wikipedia, you can see immediately they talk about her husband, George Langford. So I went down this rabbit hole trying to find him, found out she never had a husband named George. And that's somebody wrote an article, somebody else wrote an article, and it was just all this information that was incorrect. So I went down a research rabbit hole because I was like, how do we not know this stuff? A lot of the things I was discovering, I just couldn't believe that we had never learned it, that I didn't know any of that. And so it got to a point where my girlfriend was like, you need to stop researching and write the book. And so I did. I finally got out, and my mother says I need to stop telling people this because I sound crazy, but I was at her house in Los Angeles, and she was like, tell my story. I want you to tell my story. And so I was ready, poised, and just ready to share with her, share with the world this story that many people had kind of written off.
Yes. This may sound crazy question, have you heard from her since?
I have. So when I finished the book, I told my sister, Hattie is pleased. And she said, I thought she was dead. I said, she is, but I know she's pleased. Yes.
So let's go into the book a little bit. And when she won the Academy Award, she thought it was going to change her life. And I'll admit, I've never seen the movie. I tried. I couldn't. But it just didn't sit well, so I couldn't watch it. But was she being naive, or should she have expected it to change her life?
So she didn't expect, I had a reader tell me, did she really think Jim Crow was going in? No, she didn't expect that racism would go away, but she did expect, okay, I won this Oscar, I'm the first Black person, maybe now I can start getting some different roles. So she expected that it would change her life in that it would open doors that she had never previously been unable to enter, because they only let her play maid servants and slaves. So she thought that she would have an opportunity to do more than be a maid servant or slave.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about her relationship with Clark Gable. Was there a relationship with her and Clark besides friends?
Everybody want to know, was Hattie and Clark messing around? No, so they were just really, really good friends. They loved to laugh. They loved playing practical jokes with each other. And they were really good friends. And he was just ahead of his time in that he didn't care what color she was. He actually was an ally before we even knew what the word was. He was the reason they integrated the bathrooms on set of the Gone with the Wind. He was the reason that they integrated the cafeteria. And he would actually fight for Hattie with the Atlanta premiere. He wasn't going to go because they wouldn't allow Hattie to come. And she said, you're the king of Hollywood, you're the star, you have to go. But he was ready to fight and say no, and she had to bring him down a lot. But they really were just good friends.
Okay. When I started reading, like I said, I just became obsessed. So I would put the book down and go on the internet, and I started looking. And of course, there's rumors that he was passing, so that he wasn't a white man anyway. Any thoughts on that?
So I went down that rabbit hole, and I know a lot of people have heard that rumor. And I could not confirm that, so I did not even though this is fiction, I didn't want this to be on the banned book list. And if I had said Clark got some black in him with no proof, so I didn't touch that.
As I was reading the book, I read it and I had friends read it, and then I started calling friends and what do you think? And do you have any questions you want to know? And I have a question I'm going to say for the end, but one of the statements a friend made, she's not here, she had to travel, was that I was thinking about Hattie and her friends and all the friends that she had in Hollywood. So this was our discussion. And my friends said, her comment was, they weren't her friends. And I'm thinking she took that from the part in the book where they were talking about her in her house. Do you think they weren't her friends?
I think the ones that were talking about her weren't. But you have those work friends. So that's those were the work friends that come to see your house, to look around so they can go back and report. She did have a core group of friends. Lillian, Louise, Dorothy Dandridge, Ruby Dandridge, those were all her core, really good group of friends. But no, the rest were,
Yeah, they were just a little bit ahead. Yeah, and sometimes just so hard to tell people what you want them to know. And so they were witnessing her be a fool, I guess, a little bit. So, and then they just started gossiping instead of talking to her about it. So, yes. So Hattie struggled throughout the book as she tries to make space for herself in Hollywood and taking on roles, and the NAACP beat her up, and we were having a little mini discussion here before you got here, and it's like the letters that came from overseas and it just seemed like these people beat her up. What was she supposed to do?
And that was her question. You know, one of the things that I really got from the very beginning is Hattie was always like, what would you have me to do? Because the white people didn't like Mammy because they felt Mammy was too sassy. Black people didn't like her because they felt she was too degrading and stereotypical. And she would always say, what should I do then? There was one point where she, meets up with Walter White, the president of the NAACP, and said, where do I go sign up for these roles you want me to play? I would love to be Wonder Woman. Where can I go sign up for this? And that's the part that I think so many people lose sight of. Hattie wasn't playing a maid because she just thought she was the best maid out there. She was playing a maid because that's all they would let her do. And there was one instance where it kind of summed up how producers felt about her. This producer kept getting her mixed up with Louise Beavers, her dear friend. And when they corrected him, he said, oh, if you've seen one fat black actress, you've seen them all. And that was kind of the motto that they had.
And that goes into that quote. It's funny, I didn't know this was a famous quote, but I fell in love with it about either I can make $700 a week or $7. Yes. And so, and I just don't know, do you think there was anything she could have done or said to the black, and especially the community? Is there anything she could have said or done to get them off her case?
No, because they didn't want her to play a maid. And so that's all she could play. So she either had to play a maid, as she said, I'd rather play a maid for $700 than be a maid for $7. Yeah. And there were people that would say, well, then you just need to be a maid for the cause.
Yeah, just ride for the cause
right.
And make $7. Right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's tough. I know she had, visions of being, breaking ground, and, do you think she did that? Do you think she achieved what she set out to achieve and reached her goals about, making a difference?
Absolutely. See, one of the problems, and we even do this to this day, when we look back and look at it negatively. So we look at the fact that Hattie McDaniel wasn't allowed at the Academy Award initially. David O. Selznick had to pull strings to get her there. And then they put her there, and they put her at the very back of the room. Right. And so we hear that and we get mad and we're like, that doesn't make it, that's so wrong. Hattie McDaniel was like, but I'm in the room. Yeah. There has never been a black person outside of a janitor or a wait staff in this room, and I'm in the room. And so that's the way she chose to look at it. The people would get mad at her, what she was doing with Gone with the Wind, but because she was in the room, because she had a seat at the table, she was able to make change. I call her a quiet warrior. Yes. So she was a quiet change agent. Yes. Because of her, the N-word did not go into the movie. And that was popular at the time, but Hattie refused to say it. Yeah. And so she makes change in ways that, we're so used to the power to the people, activists burn stuff down, but she made waves her quiet way.
Quiet way. And I love that you said that about her, because I do believe that's exactly what she was. She was quiet. And I guess leading into that, and this is just, why do you think, and this is a conversation I had with a friend of mine and she's here, why don't we celebrate her more? Why don't we talk about Hattie more? When it's Black History, why are we not talking about her? When it's Women in History Month, why are we so silent about her? And I know people feel so embarrassed by her, and she's Mammy to so many people, my parents' generation. Why don't we celebrate her more? Because
she was a maid. She's a part of history we want to forget. Now, we challenge people, we get mad at people all the time for wanting to erase our history, and then we turn right around and do that. Yes. We want to forget the Mammies of the world. And, and that was a detriment to people like Hattie. One of the things that she had a problem with is she used to always say, Lucille Ball can be a silly comedian, and nobody says a word. Yes. But when I do the same thing, it's an indictment on the entire race. Absolutely. And she really struggled with that all the time. The black press would tear her to shreds. And so she just said, I just want to act.
Yeah.
And I recently talked with an actress today who goes through some similar things. And she said, sometimes I just want to be an actress and not a black be a black activist leading the cause. I just imagine if you go to work every day and somebody is saying to you every day, we want you to be the face of justice, and you just want to do your job sometimes.
Well, that kind of is what's happening still.
Yes.
So as you said, you just spoke to an actress today and she's feeling the same thing today. Things haven't changed. And again, as I'm reading this book, I'm getting so frustrated. I am nobody's actress, but I feel it at work. You feel it in your life. You feel it when you go. That has a lot changed. Has anything changed? Did Hattie go through all of that for nothing?
And so there has been small progress. So you look at, we're coming up on the 85th anniversary of Gone with the Wind. There have been 10 actresses in the entire history that have won Best Actress, Oscar. 10. And that's in the 95-year history of the Oscars. Yes. And so while you are excited for the Divine Joy Randolphs, there's still a part of you that are like, okay, why are we still here this much longer?
Yeah. Do we not go to the movies? Like, you know, from Hattie, and then it was Whoopi Goldberg, right? So should we have not, what do we do? Do we not go to the movies until we are, to, you know, the hashtag, you know, the Oscars so black, you know, the year when all, you know, why are we, what do we do?
So you get to the point, and Viola said this also, Viola Davis, you get to the point where you start doing your own. And we see that with the NAACP Image Awards. We see that with actors and actresses like Issa Rae, who says, we're going to start making our own stuff. Yeah. Because there are so many doors that are closed even still. Yeah. And you can't just forever, decade after decade, keep waiting for a seat at the table. Right. Sometimes you have to go make your own table.
That's right. Love it. Love it. So understanding, and this is a me question here too, that things that was kind of bothering me. Understanding that there's a difference between being accomplished and being happy. Do you think Hattie was happy?
I think she was not happy because she wanted approval so bad. She wanted it to be a credit to her race, and she couldn't understand why she had so much hate. And that bothered her on a regular basis. There were so many students she mentored, so many lives she was able to change, and all people could see was that she was Mammy. So she made a habit when she loved to cook. Whenever she answered her door, she would take her apron off because she wanted people to see that she's more than Mammy. And that was a struggle all her life.
Oh, wow. Okay. So the book made me sad. I ended it sad. Was I supposed to be sad?
No.
I was sad.
See, it seems like you got a little militant in you.
And I try not to. And anyone who knows, I grew up military. I grew up being the only black girl in class, the only for many years until I went to an HBCU, and the whole world changed. But so that was me. So I felt myself being her a lot of time. I felt her so deeply. So when I ended the book, I was sad. I sad that she died. I sad that she didn't get to see, someone else, the fruits of her labor. So I was sad. But I was like, let me ask you, was I supposed to be?
You were not supposed to be sad, because if Hattie were here, she would say, don't weep for me. She would choose to focus on all that she did accomplish, all that she did was able to do. She died wanting to be buried at the Hollywood Cemetery. And you'll notice that as she's dying and she realizes her dying wish will not be granted, she still was like, okay, let me have a party. Because that was her thing. Parties brought her joy. So she found what brought her joy. And she's dying and her friends are like, you're dying in the hospital, you want to have a party? She's like, because I want some joy. Yeah. And so that's what she would want you to focus on.
Yeah, okay. Because that militant in me wanted to jump in the book, take time back, and she was going to be buried there. And that's that, that kind of, so that was, that kind of, broke me up a whole lot, because I wanted the outside happiness, the joy for her that I thought that she deserved, for all her hard work and breaking the glass ceiling and breaking some of these, stereotypes that I wanted her to be happy, to be what I thought was happy. So that kind of made me sad.
And as my grandmother would say, it was 1950, and she.
I kept telling my family, I had to keep reminding myself. And I will tell you, I read it twice and listened to it once because I needed to, after I started talking to people, I needed to change my mindset and listen to it again or read it again so that I could feel some sense of joy. But that militant part kept coming out a little bit. But I was, I wanted to hear, what your thought process was when you were writing it. But could you tell us, and then I will let you, I won't ask all the questions, I'll let the audience ask some questions, but could you tell us a little bit about your creative part of it? Now that gave me joy. I love when, they all met up and they met, Ethel Hedgeman Lyle, and I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my God, I was like, this is so awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So overall, the book is, the foundation of the book is fact. The fiction comes in filling in the blanks. So for example, the night of the Academy Awards, all of the Gone with the Wind cast and crew went out to a club. They went to celebrate, and the club wouldn't allow Hattie to come in because they had a no blacks rule. And so we know that's a fact. What we don't know is what the bouncer said at the door. So that's where the fiction comes in filling in the blanks. So I know that Hattie was at the 1942 NAACP convention, which was one of the hardest parts of the book to write, because all of that was true. Now, the fiction comes in everybody else that was there. So Hattie was a proud member of Sigma Gamma Rho sorority. And I knew that some of her sorority members were there at that NAACP convention. So I was like, well, if the SG Rhos are there, then the AKAs and the Deltas gotta be there too. So yes, and so I went back and I saw who were all part of my research process. I found the presidents of those organizations at that time. Okay. So I brought all of the presidents to this event. And then because I'm an AKA, I had to have my president bring along Ethel Hedgeman Lyle.
Loved it.
But I even made sure when Hattie goes to Howard at one point, and the Sigma Gamma Rhos introduce her. So I go to the Howard University yearbook from that year, and I got the SG Rhos, the president of that time, and that's who I put in the book.
Okay. And I love the scene with the young girl and the stole, and she took it off. I was smiling all the way through. But it's my understanding that the Academy Award is missing.
It was, so it's missing. It was at Howard University. She dedicated it to Howard upon her death. It was in her will. And in the late 60s, early 70s, it came up missing. It is believed that the students were protesting, and Mammy was among one of the many things they didn't like, and the Oscar was thrown in the Potomac. Now, Howard will not co-sign on that at all. Howard is just like, we don't know, it's just lost. But there have been people that were researching that really went on a quest to find it. And so in October of last year, the Academy of Arts and Motion Pictures finally replaced the Oscar.
Oh, yay. Okay, awesome.
So it has been replaced at Howard.
Awesome. Well, I could be here all day with you and talk some more about the book, but I thank you so much for bringing Hattie into my life. I thought it was something I would have never watched the movie at all, and I wouldn't learn about her. So I love her being this quiet warrior. I love that so much, and so I will continue to do my research, and I will put down the warrior a little bit in me and take it for what it is. And I love it, and I've shared it with so many people, and I'll continue to, because I think it's very important that we tell Hattie's story.
Thank you. Yeah, just take off your 21st century lens, and as you're looking at her and what she went through and all that she achieved.
Yeah, and we'll recognize her more, as much as we can from our little space here in Snellville, and and try to, like I said, remember her for Women in History Month. When we put these things up, she never comes up, unfortunately. So I thank you. So that's for me. So where's Gina? Do I just pat? Okay. So do we have questions from the audience? Yes.
I just want to first of all thank you for writing the book, and thank you for the historical now. Because in the beginning I was like, I kept looking at your picture. I'm like, is she a relative? Because how are you writing it in the first person? But I got past that, and I was glad I did because I got to the end. But I'm a kind of militant about things too, but from a different perspective. And I was like, why did she keep bothering? People cared. You know, why did she care? She was doing her. But then I got to the last part that she said, God comes first. And if we remember that, everything we do is great.
Mm-hmm. And it's easier said than done. When you have grown up in poverty and you're like, I want to bring joy to people's face. I want to bring happiness to their hearts. And then that's what I'm doing, but everybody hates me. You know, it's hard to then just say, oh, well, I'm making my money. That's what Step and Fetch It did. And he was, he was one of the ones that caught it the worst, Step and Fetch It. He was the millionaire. He's the first actor to make $1 million. And he had to finally tell himself, I don't care what anybody thinks. Hattie couldn't do that.
Do you think if she lived, she would have been able to do it?
I think it wasn't who she was, yeah.
I just want to clarify. That's what I mean. She kept going on.
Yes.
You know, despite how she felt, because she had God was like her source of, I can do this, and you can achieve whatever you can achieve.
Good evening. Question, you said something earlier about creators like Issa Rae, how we're, not looking for a seat at the table, but building our own tables now. And it makes me think about legitimacy as a theme. Clearly, Hattie, her whole life was looking for legitimacy. She was looking to be deemed a legitimate participant in the craft. And I think to now, when we're building our own tables, and what we create is often seen as Black movies. They're seen as, if there's a Black lead or a predominantly Black cast, then they are Black movies, and anything else is just a movie. Do you think that we are doomed to forever be seeking legitimacy?
No, what I think will happen is that as long as he who controls the money, that's part of the problems. The people making the $20 million movies are interested in the mainstream movies. So I think we have to keep making, as Antoine Fuqua said, making what they want us to make until I can get to a place where I can afford to make what I want to make. And I think we just have to keep forging ahead and hope that our children, or at least our children's children, will all have a seat at the same table wherever they want to. But it's not something as we see that will come overnight.
Thank you, ReShonda, for writing the book and going down this literary path that was genius. I have a question for you as an author. I know you have to get immersed in the story. I too was sad reading the book because I kept thinking about dream. What do you do when you have a dream? Are you just supposed to give it up because you can't get beyond the glass ceiling? So what would you tell anyone in the 21st century that's experiencing the same type of barrier that she did, irrespective of the industry that you find yourself in, coming back out of the 1950s? What would you tell someone to do? Or how would you inspire them to continue on and pursue their dreams, even though these glass ceilings keep hitting?
Yeah, one of the reasons Hattie resonated with me was because of dreams. So I am a dreamer, and I believe that I can do all the things I want to do. In fact, I remember in the 10th grade, a counselor said, what do you want to be? And I said, an author, an anchor, and an actress. And she was like, this is not kindergarten. You can't do all those things. I wish I could find her, because I would say, how you like me now? But sometimes your dreams are bigger than the boxes of those you love. So my mother loved her to death. But when I said I'm going to leave my books, my career, I was a television news anchor. I was going to leave my career to go write books. She thought I was crazy. She was like, you can never make money writing books. Don't do that. You can't make money writing books. But I said, this is my dream. And then when the dream took off, she was like, when you going to buy your mama a car? But at the time, she wasn't feeling my dream. So I had to believe in it enough until everybody else could get on board. And I still, to this day, there are people, I had a bus driver for my 6th grade, and he was like, I knew you were gonna make it. I'm like, you thought I was a little nerdy kid. But I just smile and keep going because I just forge ahead. And I'm on this train, and I'm like, everybody else just need to get on board. And my mother used to always say, you always doing something. But now everybody's like, well, I knew you could do it. So it's just forge ahead. And I also tell people, every minute you spend talking about what you don't have time to do could be spent doing it. So that's a motto that I live by.
Hi. My question is, as you were researching Hattie, what part of her that you may have shared in the book or not shared that definitely resonated with you as who you identify as, that you will forever take with you? That's like, this part of Hattie resides within me.
So the quiet warrior part, because I am one of those, and it came from my grandmother, and my grandmother to my mother. My grandmother was a maid in a small town in Arkansas who lived a good life, and she didn't want nobody messing up what these white folks was doing for her. And she would tell you that in a minute. We have a good life. And so when they got to protesting for my mother while she was in college, she would tell my mother, you go in the house and don't be out there on those streets. And so that's just something that was in us. And people will look at you kind of sideways and be like, you aren't on the front line. But everybody isn't meant for, there's room in this world for all of us. And so that really resonated with me, that quiet warrior, because I'm going to fight, but I'm going to find other ways than burning the whole place down. Yeah. I'm in this Gone with the Wind Facebook group, and there are tens of thousands of people in this group. And I joined it. I'm trying to get insight and do research. And I posted a picture of Hattie McDaniel, and I said, I didn't like her initially. And when I tell you, they started attacking me. And they were like, that's so crazy, and everybody should like Hattie McDaniel, and you're just being racist. And so it was very ugly. And my girlfriend's in the background like, girl, cuss them out, cuss them out. But my reply was, you're entitled to your opinion, but let me tell you mine. From a 12-year-old black girl who was looking at this is why I didn't initially appreciate her. So when I got through with my back and forth, I can't tell you the number of people that were like, wow, I never even thought of it like that. Wow, I had never even looked at it from that perspective. And so I had a whole new slew of people that had I approached them as the Butterfly McQueen burned the plantation down, we would have never had that connection where they could try to even remotely understand.
My question is, when you were doing your research and going through her colorful love life, how did that make you feel? Like, what?
Let me tell you, you know how you find out something about your grandma and what she used to be doing in the bedroom, and you just would rather not know? That's how I was with Hattie's love life. So that is actually one area where I did use fiction. Not her husband, she was married 4 times, but her lovers. Because when I was doing my research, I needed a flow chart. No joke, Hattie had no shortage of men. And I'm like, this one over here, this young lover's at that. And I was just like, okay, the readers are not gonna be able to keep up with all of this. So I combined several of her lovers into one, and that's Winston, because it was just so many of them. And so that was one of those things like, oh my God, Hattie, right, Hattie got it on. And that was one of those things, she's like, okay, I don't know if I needed to know that. But it was, she was searching for love. I'd wrestled with her relationship with Tallulah Bankhead. Yeah. Because, that wasn't the image that I had of Hattie McDaniel, but it's her story. And so for those that don't know, Hattie had a relationship with an actress named Tallulah Bankhead, and she introduced her to the Sewing Circle. And the Sewing Circle was this group in California. They were all married to prominent men, and they met up they would meet at different people's house to do everything but sew. So, and I wrestled with, am I going to include that? But it's her story, so I did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, you mentioned Butterfly McQueen. Was there any research or any dialogue or artifacts where there was any conversation or dialogue between the two women from Gone with Glenn? Because, you know, as you said, the African American community felt that those roles were degrading. I'm wondering what was that conversation between those two women? Because when we think of Butterfly McQueen's role, it would have been considered just half degrading.
It was. Butterfly played Prissy with the squeaky voice, and it was a degrading role, but everybody knew Butterfly in real life was ready to burn the plantation down. And her and Hattie actually fell out because during one scene, Vivian Lee slapped Prissy, and she did it for real too hard. So Prissy was ready to turn the whole plantation upside down. And Hattie tried to talk to her and say, you can't do this. And so she really got mad at Hattie behind that. And she felt like Hattie was a sellout. And so they had words, they exchanged, but Butterfly's reaction was exactly what Hattie was saying. She got blackballed because she got into it when she yelled at Vivian. She got into it with the director because she might have been playing a slave, but as soon as they said cut, she went to telling everybody off. And her career ended up paying for it.
Hello, thank you again for writing the book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I found myself wanting to learn more about two things. One, your choice to start the book as an adult when she was in Hollywood, and did you find any, anything in her childhood that would give us a little bit more about her choices in men or to be a quiet change agent? And then the other thing, the one part of the book that I wanted to know was Factor Fiction was about her wanting to have a baby, and did the doctor actually tell her she was pregnant?
Yes, that is fact. Hattie desperately wanted children. She was told that she was pregnant. She went through the whole pregnancy, fixing her room up, the baby's room, all of that is fact. And you know, another thing that hasn't changed, doctors don't listen to black women telling you about a body. And she kept saying, okay, something doesn't feel right. And they blew her off and something wasn't right. So yeah, it was, and that really, really affected her. So all of that is fact.
So did she have a miscarriage, or because when you're researching it, they kept calling it a hysterical pregnancy.
She did not have she was never pregnant.
She was never pregnant.
She was never pregnant. So they don't know if it was menopause or if it was a condition.
Sure.
The doctors blamed her career. They blamed her being too focused on her career. So then, of course, that ended up affecting her marriage because her husband was like, well, we can't have kids because all you want to do is be an actor. And so all of that, even her just complete depression afterwards, all of that was true as well.
But to follow up on her other question, why did you start Hattie McDaniel as an adult?
Very good question. So I didn't want to do a cradle to the grave story because the book is already long. She had a great childhood, it was poverty stricken, a great story in her childhood. So good books aren't written, they're rewritten. So the first versions of when I wrote this started when she was 6. It was too much. So then I redid it and I started it again when she first got to Hollywood. And so it was just a rewriting process, and we decided to start where everybody knows her. People did not know she had a whole life, a whole full life before that. She was the first black woman to ever be on the radio. She had a blues career, and people didn't know that. She had a lot going for her, but I just decided to start at the moment where people knew Mammy, because the whole theme is that she's more than Mammy.
How we hear you. Hello there. So a month ago, we had the opportunity to sit with you and another dynamic sister named Victoria. Yes. And I want to ask the question about sisterhood. We're in the month of Women's History. What message would you give to us in this crowd and throughout about the importance of sisterhood? You demonstrated it when you were on the stage with Miss Victoria. And I know you have long history. So if you can give us any kind of message as women not just Black women, but women in general, what would that message be about sister?
Yeah, so Victoria Christopher Murray is one of my dearest friends. And there was a mutual friend who, when we first started in this business, was like, you know, she doesn't like you. And I was like, oh, wow, she invites me everywhere. And, you know, and so she was like the queen of Christian fiction at the time, and I'm trying to get into the game. So you study people that are already successful. And so she would say, come on and let's go to this book signing in California. And my sister would like, I thought she didn't like you. I said, she don't, but I'm going. I hope I don't get killed or something. And so long story short, she had no idea why that came. And I would have missed out on a great sister friend listening to somebody we don't even know why they decided to lie. And so it really is about, and she's a Delta for those of you that don't know. It really is about finding people that you have chemistry with, that you love, that have your back, that will help you bury the body and not gonna ask questions. She gonna ask a million questions after they in the ground. But you really do want that, and I wanted to make sure that showed with Hattie. So Hattie had that with her core group of friends. She had Ruby that would tell her, don't wear that dress. I have friends that will say, your blacks don't match. I have one, that's her job to tell me when my blacks don't match. I just think sisterhood is so crucial because we are not operating solo. We need villages. And over the years, I think people lose sight of that, but we need our villages.
Good evening. I just have a question that's a bit different than everyone else's question. While you were writing this book, did you do research prior or did you do more research while you were writing? Like, how did you go about that?
So I did research prior. That was where they were like, okay, stop researching and get to writing. But along the way, I continued to research. So you will spend 5 hours to write one sentence with historical fiction because you have to make sure the language is right. You have to make sure that they actually said Tinseltown in 1940. So that process, it takes a long time. My other books only took me about 9 months to write. This one took the full 3 years. And then I still did a lot of rewriting because if you write something and it's not historically correct, the readers will let you know. So I tried to make sure that everything that I'm writing is historically correct, down to, you know, what do you call a cheating man in 1940s? How do you say this type of slang? And what were menus called? And they were called bills of fare instead of menus. So you have to have all of those little things because that's what makes your book authentic.
I had a question in regard to the antagonist in the book. And I felt like Walter with the NAACP was a large antagonist throughout almost, I'd say 70% of the book. Was a lot of that research, was it true or did you add some fiction into it? And how did you come to be able to play them off of each other? Because there were some chapters in there where it was just them going after each other, which was beautiful.
All of that was fact. So for those that don't know, Walter White was the executive director of the NAACP. And he was on a mission to change the way Black people were seen on the movies, in the movies. But he did it at the expense of actors like Hattie McDaniel. And the 1942 NAACP National Convention, that's where he actually invited Hattie to come. She thought that she was about to be honored. I mean, she had a contentious relationship, but she's like, why else am I being invited? And he brought Lena Horne up on the stage. And he said, this is the standard of beauty we want America to see. And so she had to sit in the audience with her head held high. And so all of that is facts. And so what I tried to do is get into Hattie's head. That's why it's written first person. And the way that I did that is Hattie had a very, you can call it a bad habit, but after all she went through, it was her release, where she went to writing letters. So she would write a letter, and those letters would get her in trouble. But she would write a letter and that's how you knew how she was feeling about it. And I wanted to make sure that it was seen. Now, Walter White, his intentions were good, but you had to do it. He did it at the expense of Hattie. And she told him in their confrontation, what would you have me to do? And he didn't have a real answer for it.
But was his intention good? That was the one thing I thought about in the book, because they just kept battling back and forth, and he did some underhanded stuff as well too in the book, going behind her back and not having her be an advocate for everything that she had already brought to the table.
Because he dismissed her. He dismissed her because of her appearance, the way that she looked, and because of the roles that she played. He was like, there's nothing for you to bring. Now, she's one of the biggest black actresses of the era, but because of how she looked, he felt like there was nothing she could bring to the table. So yes, his intentions were, he wanted a different standard of beauty. Now, the problem is his standard of beauty was Lena Horne. And instead of saying, we have all shades of beauty, that was Lena and Dorothy were the standards he wanted Hollywood to use.
I just wanted to know, what do you think Hattie would say to the actresses or actors today who feel like they're in the same position?
Just keep on keeping on. As you said, she kept getting up. I mean, as I'm researching and all the obstacles thrown her way, I was just like, Lord, can anything else happen to this woman? But she kept on going. And that was the thing that I loved about her, that she was resilient. And that's what I hope people walk away with, is to know her resilience. One of the things I love is I'm traveling all over the country on a book tour, spreading the word about Hattie, not only trying to change mindsets, but I'm introducing her to a whole new generation and a whole new group of people. I'm stunned at the number of people who don't know who Hattie McDaniel is. There are so many people I meet that have never met her. And but I really am loving the younger generation, including my son. He is a 16-year-old who had never heard of her. The first 2 years I was writing the book, he kept calling her Hattie LaBelle. He finally got her name right. But I love that he's like, why didn't I know about her? Because why didn't I know about the restrictive covenants? We didn't really get to talk about that, but Hattie is the reason black and brown people can live anywhere they want to live. And he's like, well, why didn't we know about that? And I said, well, that's one of the things I'm hoping to change.
And that was going to be my final question, is that if you could leave us with anything about Hattie as we leave here this evening, what would it be?
It would just be to just forge ahead. Just keep on, no matter what obstacles are thrown in your path. We have a tendency to say, life is life, and so I can't get this done. And, I am a firm believer in that you just power through. When I started my tour, my publishers were like, well, we're not going to really do tours because people don't come out. So I need to get a picture before we leave. But they firmly believe that. And I wanted to I was like, okay, I can show you better than I can tell you. And I just continued powering through. And I think that's one of the things I took away from Hattie, and one of the things that I hope that others will too. Her thing was she wanted to be a credit to her race, and I'm hoping that we can have people, even if you don't like Gone with the Wind. I'm not saying everybody to go buy Gone with the Wind. I still watch it, and I still cringe a little. But I do have respect for Hattie and the era and the time that she was in. And, I love all the lives that I'm reaching. There was a little old lady, she had to be 102 years old at a signing, she was a Caucasian lady, and she came up to me and said, your book made me let go of the guilt of loving Mammy. Because when they had the whole cancel Gone with the Wind in 2020, she was like, well, I guess I'm not supposed to like her anymore. And there were a whole lot of people like that. And so I love being able to say, it's okay. It's okay if you don't like Mammy. It's okay if you do like Mammy. But respect Hattie McDaniel. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed. It was on the Today Show, and Craig Melvin was like, that sounds like a movie. I was in my living room screaming, from your lips to God's ears.
That's right. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out. Now, ReShonda's going to take a picture. She's going to turn around. We're going to see if we can get everybody in a shot for her. She'll blast it all over social and everything. But I don't want anyone to leave here without some lemonade, a cookie. And I'm not playing. I have your name. I know who you are. All right.